We got a loaded edition of Vikings Now by Chat Sports coming to you guys' way on today's show. And number one, the Wilfs, the owners of the Minnesota Vikings, are they calling the shots? We'll talk about it. Harrison Smith, could he be returning for one more season? It looked like he was going to retire, but a recent report is suggesting that he could come back for one more season. And also Javon Hargrave, he flatly just called out Brian Flores on social media after he was cut by the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll talk about it on today's show. But if you guys want the Vikings to get back to the playoffs next season, just go down there, hit that thumbs up icon for us. Put today's goal as 300 likes. We should blow that out of the water. Hit that thumbs up icon. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you guys could smash that button below. All right, I want to take a snippet out of a recent Kevin Seifert article that he was writing for ESPN, and this stood out to me. He said Brzezinski, current Vikings GM, made clear that his job is to implement the Wilfs team-building philosophy, not his own, and not one that head coach Kevin O'Connell or anyone else conjured. Is he cleaning up for the next general manager or setting the table for his own tenure? The answer will be clear later this spring. Even though that is only a couple sentences, there is a lot to unpack there. And let's start off with this. The Wilfs team building philosophy. I am guessing that him saying that, the Wilfs team building philosophy in which Brzezinski has to carry out, I am assuming that is the Wilfs telling Brzezinski that we can't spend $350 million on the roster again. We just spent $350 million last year. It was a disaster. They're also shelling out a lot of money for the coaching staff. Like, we were all pounding the table. Wilfs, you got to pay Brian Flores what he wants. You got to make him the highest DC in NFL history. Well, they did. They paid him more than $6 million. Kevin O'Connell reportedly is making $18 million. So they're giving $24 million to the coaching staff. They just paid out $350 million for the roster last year, and now we're starting to see all these cuts come in where they, one, needed to make these cuts, but they're taking on a lot of dead money. Like Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, see ya. Aaron Jones, see ya. Like, I think there was a lot of pressure on Brzezinski just to not have that total number of money be close to $350 million, but also Seifert adding the part about Kevin O'Connell saying he's not taking any page out of Kevin O'Connell's team building philosophy. I think that's straight up from Kevin O'Connell's camp. And maybe it is true. Like, maybe KOC, is not calling any of the shots. That could very well be on the table. But I don't think it is. I think Kevin O'Connell is the GM and the head coach right now for the Minnesota Vikings. And I think Brzezinski is there to help manufacture the cap. Again, this is tinfoil hat, ludicrous conspiracy theory from me. Please don't take this, too seriously. But I really do believe KOC, like, in terms of the roster, like, guys on offense, he has the final say. And Brian Flores also, I think, has a lot of power in this organization. Where it is a two-headed monster at the top, it is KOC, it's Flores, and then Brzezinski's the cap guy who's just trying to manufacture and just trying to make it all work out on the cap. So I thought that was pretty telling from Seifert that Brzezinski, like, is kind of just taking orders, which also makes me kind of think, is he going to be the next GM for the Minnesota Vikings? Are they waiting on a guy like George Payton? So, hey, we'll have that GM search after the draft, which is also another just crazy curveball for this Vikings organization where, even though I'm always positive about this team, for the first time in a while, they have started to feel dysfunctional this offseason. And that quote saying that he made it clear that his job is to implement the Wilfs team-building philosophy, pretty telling. But let's talk about Harrison Smith here. Alec Lewis, our guy, his great work, covers the Vikings for The Athletic, said it is up in the air if Harrison Smith retires. Bit of a shocker to me. Like, that got my attention because I think we all assumed number 22 was probably going to hang him up after the season, but now it sounds like he could return. Alec Lewis saying if the quarterback situation gets to a place where you can or where you create buy-in among a lot of the players, could be kind of a convincing component there. So clearly he's just saying, like, if Harrison Smith believes in the quarterback plan, like, he could get a lot of buy-in from the locker room. And he could potentially return. Now, I think with Harrison Smith, just on the field right here, because I think our emotions and how we feel about Harry is just like the player he was for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, all of us would say, like, absolutely, let me get Harrison Smith back. But on the field, I don't think Harry can be an every down player anymore. Um, and listen, he has played so long in this league. I mean, Harrison Smith, just let me double check. I'm pretty sure he's 35 years old. Or he's 37 years old. I take that back. So playing safety at 37 is absolutely insane. He can't be an every down player anymore, but he was absolutely awesome the second half of the season. Like at 36 years old, the game he had against the Lions was one of the best Harrison Smith games of his NFL career. And also he offers so much versatility with this team where he's like Flores obviously likes to disguise a whole lot. And when Harry's lining up on the line of scrimmage, he is so good at disguising it. You don't know if he's coming or going. And, just the combination of, him and Van Ginkel, those two lined up on the line of scrimmage, it is deadly. It is a weapon the Vikings have. So, I'm all in on Harrison Smith returning. Obviously, he's just great for the locker room. Great to have in that safety room. Help these young guys develop as well. Harrison Smith returning as a chess piece that plays, let's just say, 30% of the snaps, I think is ideal. Or maybe it's a 3rd and 8. Harrison Smith subs in, and he's lining up on the line. You don't know if he's rushing the quarterback or he's dropping all the way back into a deep half zone. I think him returning as a chess piece on a deal where he's playing 30% of the snaps, I think that is a ideal situation for the Minnesota Vikings. But if you guys want Harrison Smith to return for one more year, I definitely do, even though I don't think he could be an every down player anymore. I'm all in on it. Give me those 22s down below. You guys want Harrison Smith to return for one more year. All right, talk about Javon Hargrave as he pretty much called out Brian Flores here in just a second, so stay tuned. But I do want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Just head on over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. Now, the cold days are here, and if you guys still have some big-time goals but no time to cook, Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So eat well without the planning or cooking. They have quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. They have no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, and they have meals that fit your goals and schedule. Healthier eating, calorie management, more protein, that is Factor. Head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and plug in promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while your subscription is active. Link for this in the comment section and description below. All right, Javon Hargrave calling out Brian Flores on Twitter here. So Kevin Seifert just tweeting out saying, add Jonathan Allen to the list of a list of veteran players who will be departing the Vikings, including Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave. And this random on Twitter just tweeted out saying, if you're a defensive lineman and want to get to the quarterback, Brian Flores' system is not for you. So, listen, obviously, Brian Flores' system is not made for the interior defensive lineman where they are trying to get, 10, 11 sacks a year. But I thought this was pretty telling from Hargrave. And this made me think of a report a long time ago where I remember Harrison Phillips, he was talking about something about how you gotta kind of put your ego aside when you're playing with Brian Flores, because Flores, when he came to the Minnesota Vikings, he took a lot of these schemes from a college defense, where there's a lot of disguise and a lot of guys playing a lot of niche roles. It wasn't just free flowing, you're playing football. And a lot of the Vikings defenders were a little skeptical of it, but they couldn't deny the results. They were a very successful defense even right away with Brian Flores. But I remember Harrison Phillips saying my initial thoughts selfishly were not super high about this. It was dang, the way it's being described is you're an edge setter, you're a cutback player. It seemed like there was not going to be a lot of production through the system. But then I saw the problems it was giving our offense in spring and summer practices, and so I thought we were really onto something, and obviously it's been kicking ass. So if you are a defensive tackle to play in Brian Flores' system, you need to be okay with not filling up the stat sheet. You need to be okay with maybe when you look at your PFF grades after the game, you don't have that good of a grade. Because you go back and look, no matter who has been the Vikings defensive lineman with Brian Flores, really besides Jalen Redmond, they don't really grade out too well. And I think a big component of that is when PFF when they're going back and they're watching game film and they're just looking at, let's just use Javon Hargrave, for example, and they see Javon Hargrave maybe in their eyes doesn't have a successful rep, but in Brian Flores' eyes, maybe that is a successful rep because he does ask his defensive tackles to do a lot of the dirty work, create lanes for other people, and it's kind of swallowing your ego a little bit. And also, the Harrison Phillips trade was a massive mistake. I think a lot of people right now are, crushing Quezzy for the Javon Hargrave signing and the Jonathan Allen signing, and obviously for right reason. Those are bad moves. But this trade was bad. You traded him for 2 6-round picks. Don't really, at the time it looked like decent value, but he was one of the best run stuffers in the league. Still had a pretty good year for the New York Jets as well. So that trade was a mistake. And I'll tell you what, the Vikings this past offseason, you talk about botching a defensive tackle position, like they did just that. Like if the Vikings didn't have Jalen Redmond, you just take him off this team right now. We are talking about drafting 7 defensive tackles next year. Because you would have what? Levi Drake Rodriguez, Tiernan Ingram Dawkins, Elijah Williams. Like you would have a bunch of just like, okay, like I think Levi Drake Rodriguez will be good. But he's like a rotational defensive lineman. He's not a true star by any means. Like Jalen Redmond is a star. So he has a lot of potential to be an all-pro at some point in his career. But, like, thank God you found Jalen Redmond because the Hargrave deal, that was a joke. Allen deal, that was a joke. And then, obviously, the Harrison Phillips trade, that was a mistake as well. So, we'll see if the Vikings maybe could get Harrison Phillips back. Maybe get cut by the New York Jets, returns to Brian Flores in the system. But definitely not great that Javon Hargrave is kind of steering defensive tackles clear from Brian Flores. It's probably a tough pitch during these free agency meetings. But speaking about free agency, if you guys are fired up for it next week, hit me with those skulls down below in the comments section. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in to today's show, and we'll get on out of here. Skol Vikes.